we have a new research assistant and other Christina. The staff should be using at the
So
set.
you could introduce yourself. You could sign for yourself. Okay, she knows a little bit. She could introduce herself.
See? And this is my sign model. Alright. Okay, let's get rid of that. Thank you, Miss. Now for our presentation.
Our guest is well, let's introduce her. Well, our research associate will introduce our presenter for today.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Okay, so we're happy that we were able to invite one of our dear teachers in this class. So, our guest researcher for today is a graduate of BS Biology in De La Salle University. She also took units of MS Microbiology as prerequisite for her college teaching. She also completed the teachership program in the Philippine Normal University, and she also passed the NET exam. She's currently taking her master's in learning and teaching in ELSC. A faculty here in TSB from 2001 to 2004 under SNS. And now she's part of SDS teaching natural science and communication skills. So please help me welcome our guest researcher for today, Ms. Rochelle.
Hi, good afternoon. For the hearing, I'm so sorry. Please bear with my voice. It's kind of like because of the cough and cold. Anyway, for the rest, we won't have a problem because we have good interpreters with us. Okay, so before I start, I just want to say thank you to Steve for opening an avenue for me to share my action research. Also to STEAS for opening avenues for teachers to do action research inside the classrooms. And of course, CIRC for the MOODLE support. I'll be explaining later about MOODLE or Organism Online. I have invited several CIRC and Tech associates. I don't know, to answer some of your would-be questions if it's referring to MOODLE or Organism. So there they are at the back. Okay. Alright. So my action research is entitled A Case Study on the Effects of MOODLE or Organism Online on the Academic Performance among Filipino Deaf and Hard of Hearing students. So let me clarify first what an action research is. Okay. Sorry, let's go through the overview first of what's going to happen today. So first, I'll be explaining about action research. And then I'll be also sharing why I did action research. What are the research questions or the problems I want solved in my classroom? What are the steps in action research that I went through? And also, I want to share about the results, implications, and reflections. And our favorite part, action research? What is it all about? According to Parsons and Brown, action research is a form of investigation designed for use by teachers to attempt to solve problems and improve professional practices in their own classrooms. So, meaning, anybody can do action research. Its purpose could be personal or also service learning in order to help applications. The usual steps in action research would be planning the project or identifying what you want solved in your classrooms, or what we call needs analysis. If you think that your students will need more vocabulary, how do you go about it, or do they need more comprehension about something, how do you go about it? And then you implement the project. So you introduce the intervention or you introduce the solutions to your problems. And then you observe it if it's really helping by gathering data. But most importantly, you should reflect and evaluate if it does target your purpose. And it's a continuous cycle. Because in order for us to improve our practice, we have to continuously do it. Next. So why did I do my research? Well, my rationale would be based from my observations as a teacher. You all know that I'm a newbie. So I'm just new in teaching the deaf and hard of hearing. But my purpose is to really improve inside the classroom. So first of all, I've encountered what I call lost in translation. So according to Philippine Federation of the Deaf, one of the problems in deaf education includes the no language linking policy in elementary and high school education to post-secondary or tertiary level of education. So they actually identified several sign languages in 15 regions. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Some would use Filipino Sign Language, which is FSL. Some would use Philippine Sign Language, ESL. American Sign Language, Signing Exact English, and some would use local signs. So I had an experience in class when I asked them, how do you sign cell? And I have 10 students. I also got 10 different signs. So it will be a problem if I use one sign. There's only one student who won't understand that. So with that, I want my students and I to be at the same level or at the same playing field. So we use and read signs. Next. Okay. I'm sure you've encountered this. Some of our students would come to class unprepared. The reasons would be no handout, they were not informed, or they were absent last time. Because the usual practice is I interview them. The president would be in charge of disseminating the handouts. So if the president would forget, everybody will be unprepared. Right? Sino naka-encounter nun? So, right. Okay, next. Lack of available materials. Well, this is according to the literature. They say that there are no textbooks with clear graphic presentation of scientific terms. And that science teachers may lack sign language for science terms to explain and describe concepts. And not only that, if I ask my students to research, when they go to Google, when they get the results, the one on top will be their reference. They won't even check if the reference is reliable or not. Or the first picture in the images, that's what they're going to use. So information is not the problem, but how do they discern or think about or at least check on the reliability of the informations. Next, so for me, my bias or my opinion, my idea, it is important that they have an online resource facility of lecture presentations and of links or references or reliable information in an organized manner. These will keep all of us, my students and I, in the same playing field, so decreasing the loss in translation in the lecture and exams affecting academic performance. We all know that some of our students, when they take written exams, although they know the concept, it just so happened that they don't understand one word, so they answer it incorrectly. But if you ask them again and you use signs, when they answer, they know the answer. It means it's correct. Right? Next. Okay. So before I move on, I want to share certain terms that I use for this action research. The first one is what we call blended learning. Okay. This is a new emerging trend in education. When you say blended learning, you combine the face-to-face learning or the traditional classroom experience where the teacher will meet with the students and discuss inside the classroom with online learning. So later on, I will be explaining more about online learning. So again, blended learning is a combination of the two. Okay, so next would be MOODLE. MOODLE is Modular Object-Oriented Dynamic Learning Environment. It's an LMS, we call it Learning Management System. They say there's a lot of LMS or Learning Management System. This is LMS. Okay. There is what we call MOODLE. And then I think what Anna used in this Blackboard. And then PLSU I think is using Sakai. So these are all learning management systems. They're online. They host. Let me clarify. An LMS is a learning management system in.
It's like a website that is, the purpose of the website is to aid teachers in teaching or delivering instructions.
So in CSP, what we use is MOODLE. Right? But specifically, it is named Built Online. Okay, so to show you that this is the Built Online. So if you want to use it, okay, so this is the Built Online. Inside the Built Online, this is my account. I have all the courses that I'm teaching and also the courses that I'm part of from CARC. So, for example, okay, this is my Math Sci 2 or Anatomy and Physiology. So, all my presentations are here, accessible to the students. So, my PowerPoint presentation, the links, online activities that they may want to go to, animated websites, they connected to the topic. You can also do online exams. Yes. Yes. The PowerPoints are downloadable if they want to. They can save it in their own USB or their own laptops or gadgets. So you can also do an online exam if you want to. By the way, if you do an online exam, at the end of when they submit their answers, automatically the scores will come out. So you don't need to check it one at a time. Just have to record. Or I think there's also a grades management system inside MOODLE. You just have to put in the data and automatic.
You just have to take the exam.
Okay.
And then
You just have to take the exam and then it will automatically put in the data. So each of your student will have their own account and they can access the MOODLE. As long as they're enrolled in the subject. Also, you can put in PDF files of articles, journals, news clippings. Your rubrics, you can also put it in there so that they know how they will be graded. And then, one feature of my Not Sci 2 class would be the Anatomy and Physiology word study. Okay, the Anatomy and Physiology word study would be a grade science that we use in the classroom. So if they want to review it and they're confused, they can actually go through it and review the science. This is also a project done by the former batch. The collaborative project that we did, FS7 Science. And so I'm using it this term. But they can only access the link through MOODLE. So it helps us in discussion in class so we don't get confused on the science. Okay, so there. This is what you call the build online. So, clear po ba yung MOODLE tsaka yung Build Online? Sige, okay. Next. Okay. Alright. So, as my key literature for this study, because yes, I'm doing actual research and it's all about my improvement, but it has to be based from literature also, from a framework of other specialists in the field. So, I believe that to reinforce concepts and instructions given through science, the teacher should use much visual information. So this is the main reason why I use MOODLE or Build Online. And then also, the advantages of electronic media in depth education would be the anytime, anywhere policy. They can access it anytime, anywhere. If they want to review it on their own, they won't need to wait for the teacher to give them the file. They have the freedom to use it anytime. And then access to worldwide community of learning and teaching because of the different links and websites. Okay, they won't just get information from the teacher but also other experts. And lastly, it prepares the students to be part of technologically advanced workforce or society. We all know that technology, especially the internet, is advancing very fast. There are a lot of applications and all of that. With the help of MOODLE or the Build Online, it can give them confidence and coursing through courseworks. So, my problems or the things that I would want to know. Okay, will the use of MOODLE courseware affect the academic performance of deaf and hard of hearing students? Meaning to say, will it improve their academic performance or will it help them in studying? Okay. Next would be, how do the deaf and hard of hearing students perceive the online courseware as an instructional method? Do they like it? or were they having a hard time. So we need to know that because we all know that if they're comfortable in doing something, they're easily engaged in that activity. And then lastly, what online features are preferred by the deaf and hard of hearing students in studying anatomy and physiology? Okay. So my methods, okay. To measure my questions, for me to know if my questions are being answered. I did pre-test and post-test. I'll be explaining everything later on. This is to measure the academic performance. For me to know kung nag-improve na ba. So, I did a pre-test and post-test on factual, conceptual, and procedural knowledge. Next, to know the perception of the students about the MOODLE as an instructional tool. Do they like it or they're having a hard time? I use what you call the call list survey or the Constructivist online learning environment survey. This is pioneered by Ms. Marisa Rodriguez. She's the head of CIRC, director of CIRC. So it's a likelihood scale. I'll be showing you the example later, which includes open-ended questions for students' perception. And then lastly would be, we're all familiar with this, focus group discussion for me to know what are the online features my students like. Okay, for the methods, ayun, okay. Okay, so my example would be my students. I had 44 students who are deaf and 8 are hard of hearing, 24 males and 28 females with the age range of 32. They also asked them their online survey, their hours per day, and I'm surprised that some could do more than 3 hours in a day surfing the internet. Some would do less than, they say 15 to 45 minutes just to check on Facebook. But whether they have gadgets or not, because 3.8%, that would be 2 students, they don't have any gadgets, no smartphones, no laptop, no iPad, but they can access it in the laboratories, like here at Penn MLC. Even if they don't have, they still surf online. So, yeah. Next. Okay, so step 1, I did a teacher-made pre-test and post-test. So, dun sa pre-test ko, I did an 18 true or false questions for the factual, hindi called objective type of test. No reasoning, wala ganun. Basta objective lang, parang true or false. Simple statements about anatomy and physiology. Next would be, part 2 would be the 6 essay type conceptual questions. When you say conceptual questions, I want to measure how do they understand, for example, the function of the heart or the digestive system. So it's concepts in body functions. And lastly would be 6 enumeration type procedural questions. This would pertain to mga first aid. What do you do if there's pain, somebody who has pain, or what do you do if you have diarrhea, something like that. So, with the pre-test, it is to measure, it's to measure what do they know already. So, wala pa, hindi pa kami nag-discuss. It's just for me to know what are their ideas about the topic. Next, step 2, I introduced the courseware. We had the Biniled Online orientation so that they will be comfortable in using it. So, because in Biniled Online, I explained to them that you can download lecture presentations. You don't need to wait for me to send it to your president. It's up to you. It actually encourages independence in studying. And then it also has supplementary links of videos and websites as reference. Okay. Just like what I've shown you, scan journals and magazine articles and rubrics for assessment. This is really important for me so that at least they know how they're graded. That it's not just a guess or based on what I feel, but actually based on certain evaluation or rubrics. Next. Step 3, use of intervention. We did what you call blended learning. We still meet in class, but my class was, I requested for it to be at the PNLC, where everybody can have access to their own computers when we need to do online learning. So when say blended learning, we have two components. Yung face-to-face namin inside the classroom, we still meet every time. We discussions, we use online presentations and other references, and then we do guided offline and online activities. Our activities are mixed, not just online. We also have offline activities. For the asynchronous component, that would be their own time. They do it on their own time. So they review for lessons, they check on course events, they complete online tasks, and familiarize with the terms through work study. Or sometimes they also send messages, because you can send messages to each other using Pinag Online. So when they have group work, that's where they collaborate through the Pinag Online, sending messages to the Pinag Online. Step 4, after the blended learning for 12 weeks, at the end of it, I did the post-test naman. Okay? This is it. The same exam as the pre-test, only it's rearranged. Para hindi sila familiar with the sequence of the exam. And then, naturally, for me to know if they improved, I have to compare it with the pre-test. And then, so, for me to make sure that yung test ko, mineasure na yung kung anong gusto kong i-measure sa knowledge ng estudyante ko, I have to run it through SPSS or Statistical Data Analysis. I know everyone is traumatized with data and analysis, but this is very friendly. Or we can hire a statistician to do this for us. So, we don't need to be scared. Okay, so my result with the cron back alpha, when I say cron back alpha, it is to measure the reliability ng exam ko, kung tama yung exam ko. So, ang nakuha ko lang is 0.7. But it's considered acceptable. Because acceptable is 0.7 to 0.9. Malapit na, pero acceptable pa rin siya. Okay. Alright, so lastly, or I think this is not the last, step 5, I did the survey. I gave out the questionnaire. It's a Likert scale with open-ended questions. Some of the examples of the statements would be this one. So this is the contest. I just got samples of the statements. For example, I like choosing MOODLE. So they choose whether they strongly disagree, agree, or strongly agree. There's no neutral ground. It's either they disagree or disagree. Because it's hard to measure if there's a neutral ground. Sometimes they would just go to the neutral ground as if they don't care. But we have to know. It has to be a yes or a no. So these are the sample statements. It is easy to access MOODLE at home. The use of MOODLE makes the subject more interesting and all of those things. Right. So step 6. After the survey, I did the focus group discussion. I asked them what online activities do they like or dislike. Also, to clarify their answers at the survey and their comments, I have to counter-check or validate their survey through asking them questions. Next would be data analysis. So you have to analyze the results through, again, SPSS. It's a software. I think it's expensive, but we can use the one here in CSB if we want to do actual research. We have that. Okay, we have an SPSS. Okay, we have a copy and seat. So anybody who would want to do research and you need quantitative data, we have Miss Tina to help us for the data analysis. But this is my favorite, to analyze the answer of the student from the FGD in the open-ended discussions. Because this is not numbers. This is like direct opinion or comments of the students. Alright, so for my results, I'm not going to discuss more about this. Okay? I'm just going to discuss that there is improvement in the test scores. It just goes to show, this is the SPSS result, but the interpretation is, ito yung average ng scores of the test. Okay? This is the average scores of those tests. So meaning, from 10.8 ng pre-test, naging 11.96 yung tumaas yung score niya. My problem here was, I think, for me, I have to adjust the factual questions because this is true or false. So even if they don't know the answer, they can guess it, and they can get 50% correct. They can get it 50% correctly. So, part of my reflection would be dapat consistent yung factual, conceptual, and procedural questions or items ko. But, yung conceptual na, out of 80 na, from 5, naging 11. So, tumaas yung score nila. Tapos from 7, naging 12. So, ang assumption ko dito as a teacher, mas nalaman nila yung concepts or yung functions ng body. Tapos dito, ngayon, they have the knowledge of what to do as first aid. If there's emergency, like diarrhea or sprain or CP, at least they know how to do those things. That's the assumption. And then, this is another SPSS result. It only says that the factual, conceptual, and procedural, the test, is significantly different. There's a significant difference. Meaning, malaki yung in-improve ng pre-test and post-test sa pre-test. Next. Okay. So, for the perception, I won't go through everything, but the perception of relevance, they just find the course relevant as shown by their agreement. So, this is the percentage of agreement or the students who agree na relevant yung course. Next. This one is on reflective thinking. It means that dun sa course ko, napapaisip sila, which is good. Because they find it engaging, and then it makes them think about questions and answers and ideas. So that means they're interested in the class. Okay, this one, tutor support, it's my favorite because it pertains to me. I just don't know if they're biased about it. But I'm referring to the comments na lang. Okay, so I quoted them verbatim. Okay, so my teacher helped us to build online. The tutor helped me, of course, MOODLE, I learned the lesson from science. So my interpretation, and I asked them about this, and this is what they're referring to. It was our first time to use MOODLE, and our tutor taught us how to use it. So, but I give more weight on the next item, which is the instructional method. What do they think of MOODLE? So again, their percentage of agreement on the statements favoring the use of MOODLE would range from 80.77 to 100% of agreement. So they're favorable in using MOODLE. Okay. But more than that, with the focus group discussion and the open-ended questions, these are the answers that I gathered when I asked how did build online help you in learning science. And this is where I got the implications. First, through presentation of visual content. We all know that they're highly visual. Okay? And it's much simpler to them when we teach a concept that there's a video or an animated picture or an animated explanation connecting the discussions in class. Next would be, it provided the MOODLE, the Binilk Online provided easy-to-read files and references. Okay. Because I think it is my responsibility to give them additional knowledge, but that additional reference should be deaf-friendly. Should be something that would engage them and motivate them to read, not just anything. Especially in science, there are so many technical terms. So it has to have something that they can, it has to be easy to read, yet not too easy. Parang balance lang. Next, the organized presentation of topics. So MOODLE have the information for me that let me know the details by MOODLE. Only topics I can see where to find related subject. So it's important pala for them that when we give them references and resources, it's organized per topic. We just don't send emails based on the day, because sometimes you would remember, oh, there's a good journal that you can read, and then you send it again. So it's better that they see it together so that at least they have a good recall on the concepts that you would want to teach. Next, it provided more opportunities to look at them. This is what I want. People want to early study, know late, and postpone. Okay. So, as a student, it helps him or her that he can or she can do advanced reading of the topic so that when he or she would go to class, meron siyang idea. And then she has ready questions, it is more engaging. Next. Binilk Online reminds them of activities. So they have no excuse, even if they're absent for 2 weeks, or even if they were not informed, because you give them reminders through Binilk Online, they have no excuse not to bring the materials, or not to be ready for a quiz, or for activities. Next. It provided opportunities to repeat the lessons. Everyday review. Masipag ka ba? Nag-review daw siya everyday. And then, check, review, and download files. So, it's the accessibility of the references that they're actually, they actually want from Binilk Online. Ako siya.
So every day, you could access it.
Yes, online, even at
Online,
home.
even at home, not just
At
in school.
home, mobile, if they have Wi-Fi. So, I have students now, they don't print anymore. They use na lang their cell phones. They review through the cell phones. So, less waste of paper. They can also save it in their USB. They can, if they want. Next. Sorry. And then to interactive links, because I use animated websites for them to know the concepts or how a body organ would function. So they understand it more than me explaining in class. I add mga animated explanations also. Or animated visual aids. Okay. So any questions with how Binilk Online helped them? So for my number 1 question, the answer ng MOODLE that there's an improvement in their academic performance for the pre-test and post-test. Secondly, with the survey, they are favorable in using MOODLE. They actually prefer using MOODLE. And also, they were helped in many different ways. So for the third question, what online features or what features in Binilk Online do they like? Because the result of this would help us actually in designing our own courseware. First, they like the frog online dissection because we don't have a laboratory here. So we did an online dissection. They like it because it has clear instructions with caption. So it's important for them. Yeah. Yes. And they don't have to do it in real life. So hindi sila manlilibre. It's interactive. Like you click on something and then you, for example, you click on the knife and then you would have to follow the arrow and then you can see the inside. It's not cartoonish. It looks real. It's interactive. Okay. They enjoy doing it because it's like play. So when they're having fun, it's easier for them to learn. Okay. So next would be anatomy and physiology because some of them, it's their first time to actually hear the words or to know the words anatomy and physiology. And also actually their first time to know the body parts, the other body parts. That's internal. What they know though is external because it's easy to see, but the internal body parts, they have an idea but not, they don't really know the functions of it. Okay. Next would be, which is interesting for me, cells and the organism. This is the most boring part, but it's actually one of their top threes. Because they say they didn't have a knowledge of cell division before. So they didn't know that the skin cells would die, it would grow. Kaya daw pala when they have sunburn after a week, it's like fresh skin na rin. Okay, next. This one would be interesting because they're all, they said they most relate to the topics here, which would be skincare, reproductive system, and science of fitness. This is interesting. They like female reproductive system because the boys down for future knowledge when they get married. And there's an instruction guide down for the menstruation, care for the vagina. And then, for reproductive system and pregnancy and STD. Pregnancy daw future use. Nobody would explain it though before. Now though they're ready to understand because they're in college. I make our class a safe place, so if they have questions, if they're nahihiya, we can just do one-on-one. But if their question is pretty safe and it is for the knowledge of everybody, we can actually discuss it in class. We also like science of deafness because it says here no understanding of what really happened. They only know it as fake ear, or because this presentation has clear explanation with pictures. So if you would notice, there's a recurring theme. It's always visual or with pictures, easy to read. They also like the what's your skin type because they don't need to go to the doctor. This is an interactive, it's an online activity. They can know their skin type and they can know the products that would match their skin type. So it's very relatable to them. Also the common skin diseases. They like the guide solutions to acne. So, our topics are very relatable. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to memorize all the body parts and know the bodily functions. We get lang whatever is relatable, whatever they can use, practical applications. Okay. For the male reproductive system, they said no awareness, even parents no explanation about risk awareness. I think this is referring to STDs and other things. So these are the topics that they like. At least it would help me when I design my course. Like right now, I did this 2 terms ago. So based on what I've learned here, I apply it now.
So these are all your presentations. These are your
Yes.
presentations.
Some of them, but some of them,
How about something about cancer?
yes, in each system. For example, respiratory, they have for lung cancer. But the easy ones, not like the doctor, those are deep understanding and they may not be competent, I would assume. Okay, for the classroom implications. This doesn't necessarily need to be just in science. It could be in any subject. Our presentation should be visually stimulating because, as they say, when I enjoy, my mind works. So when their affect or their emotions would be motivated, their mind is also motivated. It's very important to connect words and pictures. I believe most of us, we went through bilingualism workshop, and there are so many word study strategies. We can actually incorporate them in our discussions in class because it really helps them. Next, organization of content. The grouping of related topics gives them an overview of the course. So they have a mindset already that when we go to the class, these are the topics that we're going to talk about. We have to, even if our topics would be somewhat boring, we need to find something that they can use and apply for now and for the future. So we have to design our classroom or our lessons in such a way that it is relevant to them. They can get something from it. Next, Pinel Online is a useful tool. It is a tool to help teachers and learners. Yes, we will do a little bit of adjustments in training, but after that, we'll reap the benefit. Ilang days per training. Anyway, currently, CIRC is preparing a STEA-specific training module for Binilk Online. Yay daw. So that everybody can have access on the Binilk Online. Okay. So integrating online courseware or any other technology in facilitating learning is a strategy to equip our students to become 21st century learners. Remember, we are preparing 21st century learners, so we have to be 21st century teachers, and that would include information management, thinking pedagogy, learning environments, creative and publishing, web access, building a new paradigm, skill sets for the 21st century. All of these can be, so all of this is under or is included in the Binilk Online. So your use of Binilk Online would actually help you have everything. But I still have further reflections and implications, so 2 slides na lang. Okay, I'll be done na. So next, okay. I just have a little problem with connection, with internet connection sometimes. So that's one problem, and I think our ITD is doing something about it. And then one of my students, for some reason, because of an ID number problem, she wasn't able to access her Binilk Online because the ID number is their username. So it's a problem with the registrar's office, but because of that, it took her 3 weeks before she can access the Binilk Online. Next, some of my students requested sana daw there's an easy, medium, and hard activities for the interactive activities. I said, I'm gonna look for it because I don't know how to design interactive activities. Unless our MMA graduates from STEAS would help me design interactive online activities. And you also need to update presentations, assignments, and links. Because some of the links I used last year I found out this year wala na, it's closed na, or it's not accessible anymore. So as a teacher, it also helped us to update and upgrade. We don't just rely on what we used before. Visual presentation can make or break a class discussion. Based on experience, when I just put words, just like right now, I think you guys are bored. But when I put photos or something moving, everybody's so alert. So the use of the courseware greatly enhanced their independent study habits and empowered each and every student to take control of their own study time. So they don't depend on anyone but themselves. And lastly, we can collaborate to do action research to improve the learning experiences of our students. So it's an invite, everybody, we can all do action research. And then conclusion, last slide. Okay, this is from my student. It makes me enjoy my mind works. So it is good to ask the learners the best way they learn and better to partner with them in creating an apt learning environment, but best to test it through action research. Because what deaf children get out of life will depend to a large part on the type of education that they get. My references, and then thank you. So if you have questions about MOODLE, the CIRC EdTech will answer. Training, downloading. And then enough time, 20 minutes back are left. So if you have questions, they're very welcome. Or anything about action research. Just stay down will answer.
Mine has in class, do you use tablets for your students, or she's asking class, do you allow to use tablets or gadgets?
It depends on the activities. If the activity will be offline discussion, then walang gadgets or tablets. But if it's online, we do. We have an iPad for students. iPad for students.
We're in the process of purchasing 45 units in lieu of the e-classroom.
So they're the CIRC EdTech, they're preparing for what they call an e-classroom. So an e-classroom is kind of like a computer laboratory, but instead of computers, they use
We will
iPad.
replace the existing computers with for the e-classroom lang. For video 308, we will be replacing the desktop units with tablets. 45 units of tablets.
So if you want to do online class, we can reserve that for you.
Yes. But it's still in the process,
But it's still in the...
process being purchased.
But for now, you can use the Node Online as references for your students. So they can access all the PowerPoints, all your resources. They don't need to print handouts, they can just download it. Okay, any more questions? Ayun.
To share my experience before, they gave us training for MOODLE, the CIRC station was here. So I hope it will just be a review.
Det blir när reinforce t-shirt for
It would be a good time to reinforce teachers to make use of MOODLE. So many attended the training before, but it was discontinued because of the lack of time, maybe the couple of times. Many had too much to do. So I hope that this time with CIRC
planning to benefit from the review,
Well,
training and MOODLE, this will be a requirement for teachers and kindergartens. So I hope that you have
For the
training
trainings,
for
we're working with Rochelle, and we'll be asking. We'll be asking if we can work with Rochelle and Anna, and also Myong, to develop an SDA specific MOODLE training, and of course other trainings that the EdTech office offers. We'll try to tweak it to be SDA specific.
Thank you. Wait, sorry, can I have one more question? From Anna's, Anna? Dalawa sila experience. I have two questions. First, is the process that you use it from MOODLE as an online course. Did it really help the students become more independent because they have their own time, doing their homework, own time and answering quizzes, right? Is that correct? So how sure are we that the students were doing the work? For example, because sometimes you allow them to do it at home. Activities, do you have give quizzes at home? Or it's just assignments? If they do it at home, how are we sure that they're doing it independently? They're getting help from somebody else inside the house. So, how is that? I am familiar with their style, with the way they construct their sentences, from my experience. So I know if somebody helped them, or if it was the deaf who did the sentence themselves. So that means that they didn't do their assignment alone. Because we usually chat online and I get feedback. We talk and I am familiar with the way they answer. They construct their sentences and when I explain it, they answer back. So it's through these discussions or conversations that I did. And the references. References. Meaning, they make use of references, not just their own opinions. In answering to questions, but they should have references. Use it in lab.
One example of words you consider like independent verbs.
Essays that they answer online. They will be given instructions and then they answer online. I give them a comment. They have to respond in 50 words.
So they also have like a sort of a rating scale wherein they could actually do an evaluation of the words. So everything's being done online and it's really like quickly being assessed. So for example, they will list the entire catch up the words.
I'm concerned only that the student versus class, and then
Mama, sure,
student
I'm
can
not.
have his own time to
My
make up.
student now not met that.
But I was not able to meet the student face to face. You can actually set. You can set a time. Like for example, at this time and this time, everybody should have submitted their output. Otherwise, you'd close the account. You can do that. Or you can set it sa Binyag online. Or sometimes I design the activities in such a way na there's no cheating or there's no avenue for cheating because my activities will be practical application. For example, use natural or kitchen ingredient for skincare. So show me your before, show me your after, and then you reflect on it. So they can cheat on that. Even if they all use the same product, their reflection would be different. And then their pictures would show if they really used it. So, and then upload it in the online. it depends on the designing of the lessons. Okay.
I think we also have an answer from CIRC.
I was about to suggest that the manner of delivering instructions would also limit, or not really prevent, but limit the chances of the students cheating, just as what Rochelle said. So it depends on the activities also. And one more thing, just to reiterate what Rochelle initially said in the beginning of the presentation, MOODLE or Build Online is just a tool that would aid the teachers or the instructors in teaching. So we cannot really rely everything on MOODLE and expect them to learn. Of course, it's just an aid that we use.
Okay? Answer the question?
Alright,
To share my concern if MOODLE, kasi I have similar experiences, maybe you have similar problems perhaps, encountered problems with your students with MOODLE.
With the students, I think it's more of what based from experience, it's only the internet access. But on cheating and plagiarism, we do a lot of, at the first day of class, we set some rules already. And then like, okay, if we plagiarize, if a student would plagiarize, so if a student would plagiarize, what's the necessary equivalent or what's the punishment inside the class? So they themselves would be responsible for each other. And from experience, deaf students are very honest. So if you really ask them if they copied, they would really tell you yes. So from my experience, nothing about cheating. It's all about designing the lessons. So again, Build Online is a tool, but how you design your lesson would still be the teaching and learning process inside your classroom.
Shall I?
But you have
For the first time, I used it for my first, and I think I was first time, second year in studio. I was really in panic because I'm not really familiar. Because I was familiar with Blackboard, and that's what we have been using in the US. So when I transferred here and used another platform, MOODLE, that I asked, what's your sign again?
Diane.
Yeah, so Diane. So she's in charge of it, right? And so we reviewed something about MOODLE, and then from then on, everything worked pretty well. I said at first it started really difficult, but when we had an orientation with the students and tried to show them how this works, how to download everything. So during the first few weeks, then all the difficulties, all the problems in terms of the internet connection. And so we did some 3 minutes reflections and essays. And then we also did some embedding of videos. And then they would send me feedback, follow up. So like, everything's probably new video, but I think everything worked perfectly smooth. So the assignments, everything we put there in video online. So it's and they did take the lessons in it.
just an additional information. Well, one of my students, she actually panicked in using the Build Online at home because she was absent during the orientation. So if they weren't given a proper orientation, I think if it's their first time, they would also panic in using it. Build Online because it's something new. I think it's the same with us. When there's something new, sometimes we forget how to do it, or so the constant use of it would actually make you comfortable.
Yeah, I'd like to commend Rochelle for the
Alright,
good
yeah.
research. But I would just like to ask, regarding your first research problem, parang it implies that this study is causation, causation type of study, meaning what is the effect of using MOODLE to academic performance. But how do you attribute na yung academic performance nanggaling talaga sa MOODLE and not from other variables like teacher factor, intrinsic, internal or external motivation, or others?
Well, it's an action research. So, I just referred to literature and my biases actually. This is more for my implementation inside the classroom. But if it's a bigger research, I think that's important to put the comparison.
Actually, yun sana yung i-suggest ko. For sa second research, I suggest to do two groups. One group, you will use MOODLE, the other group hindi, para to determine talaga na yung academic performance nanggaling talaga sa paggamit ng MOODLE.
And then
Suggestion.
one more, the academic performance is not just pre-test and post-test. These are my own reflections after the action research. So you can also use other evaluation strategies to assess the academic performance. Hindi lang pre-test and post-test.
Alright, Chen. Well, recently you discussed about MOODLE and terms of usage for the different academics, right? Or is it was this used just for science?
For my action research, it's just in science. But the use of Build Online is any subject, any course. Even NSTP, CSP Live, CSP Lab.
Alright, so how about the memory capacity of the knowledge online? Does it technically upload videos? Does it have
We discourage, you can upload movies, an entire movie, but we discourage you to do that because eventually we will consume all hard disk space. So for large files,
or you could probably use YouTube instead.
yeah, we can use YouTube instead in uploading and then just provide the link. Or we can use other websites wherein you can save or you can upload files on a certain website and then provide the link to the teacher as submission.
Additional. For example, the FSL video, it's in YouTube, but the link is in Moodle or Build Online, but nobody can access it apart from clicking the link in my account. So if they go to YouTube and look for it, hindi na mahahanap, right? Because
Private.
it's on private, so only through my Moodle account.
But what if at home? So how about what if they don't have internet connection or
That's a problem if there's no internet connection. But if they do have, they can access it. Even the Wi-Fi, even if it's just Wi-Fi or anywhere they go, they can actually access it. As long as they're... What they can do is download it in an internet place, save it in their smartphone or gadget, and then they can review it at home.
I just want to add to their concerns about the storage. They can make use of Google Drive Vinyled mail has Google Drive for us, for each of us. We can make use of that and we can save our files there, whether it's presentation files or videos, even you can simply link it on Moodle, and only your students will have access to those files.
Now I know.
So you use Google Drive in your classroom, which has techniques.
Okay, I understand that. Try to download, for example, PowerPoint files. Even without internet connection, you can still download them and access it. But how about videos? I don't think that you would be able to access videos without internet connection.
It's impossible to access videos without internet connection. Because it buffers, just like how YouTube works. If you can, unless you upload it in Moodle, but it would take a lot of space, and we discourage every Moodle user to do so. Kasi, for example, a simple movie will be around 800 MB or even 1 gig. If all of the users, that would be hundreds of terabytes probably per term, which is
Expensive.
yes, actually it's costly for the ITD. So let's make use of the internet. Yes, unless you will pay and you're willing to have your salary deducted for your disk space.
Alright, so we still have some more minutes. Questions?
I am quite interested with the introduction. Kung nakikita mo about the YouTube way of agreeing with science. Meron din siya explanation or definition of different academic terms or technical terms that you're using in
Yes, the video that I uploaded is from the collaborative project of Ms. Pepe and I. They also provided a PowerPoint of each term with the definition and the photo to connect with the video. So it's also uploaded in the video.
So aside from the pre and post test that you gave to the students as their teacher and experiencing your preparation, nakakita ka ba ng improvement or changes in terms of understanding yung mga concepts mo? Kasi di ba parang kung first time you experience in class, and since you agreed on science that you will use, and then you also provided definition both in their language, which is in sign, and then in English. Ano yung nakita mo na reception ng mga estudyante in using that? I'm asking that in relation to bilingual education. I want to see, or I want to know if it is done in action, parang paano nag-react yung mga estudyante or yung reception nila dun sa practice.
Yes, first of all, I'm doing the reaction research. It's on word study, on organism, the preview, view, review. I'm actually using the same thing. But just to answer the question, practical application would be when they have the FSL video and they have the word study, it's easy to discuss in class. It's for example, when I sign cell nobody would ask me anymore what that is. Unlike before, when I don't have those, when I sign something, an agreed sign, they would always ask me, what's that again? What does that mean again? What word is that again? Or something like that. So, in class, it helps me to have a smooth discussion. We don't always go back to the word and explain it. So that's one practical application. Secondly, since they have a review of the word, the FSL, and the definition, also, from my experience, less asking of questions when there's an exam. Like when they encounter the word, it's natural for them. What's this again? What's this again? But because of those bilingual strategies that I used, that was lessened also. It's kind of like when they see the word, they have a graphical representation of it. But I'm still studying the connection. They have a graphical representation of it and then the definition. Parang it's all connected. One more question now.
Now, for example, if the teacher asks is absent, can you use the Untitled online to have like a online class?
Yes. But sa our web Skype class.
For Skype Plus may bayad pag grupo. So Hangouts na lang.
Google Hangouts. And we can actually, there's a plugin in Moodle that we can use. But we haven't tested it because before we were experiencing internet problems. Internet. Medyo mabagal kasi yung maliit yung bandwidth. Pero we can have video chats or video classes.
But sa RO, registrar's office, hindi pa considered ang online class. So, pag absent ka, absent ka rin.
Accreditation.
Unless
There's a plan pa lang, pero we're still also in the process of asking the registrar to hybridize courses.
what does that mean?
It means that 50% you spend inside the classroom face-to-face and 50% online. So instead of 14 weeks spending inside the classroom, pwedeng 7 na lang siya.
Or 75-25, pwede ko lang.
50-50 talaga yung pinapropose namin. Kasi yun na yung future of classes.
Pero bayad pa rin.
Bayad pa rin.
Pero bayad pa rin.
Siyempre!
Actually, tingtad ko lang. Hybrid class or blended class was done before. Actually, it was a study with with Marisa Rodriguez, but she has to have permission from the BCA and registrar office. So, kailangan mo na may permission. And dapat may level of competency doon sa faculty bago ka mabigyan na ma-allow na mag-conduct ng blended learning or hybrid class.
Pero research.
Pero yun nga sinabi ni Jen, in the future, their office will accredit faculty so that this faculty will be allowed to conduct blended learning or hybrid classes. Only them.
Alright, because of time constraints, I have one last question coming from me. Well, from my experience, from my graduate studies, we had all online classes, never a face-to-face class. So using the Blackboard platform. And I think, is it accessible for the deaf? No. not entirely. So just want to inform you that. So, well, the proposal for the hybrid classes, I don't really support that 100%. But I would support the blended approach of learning because if during webcam classes, like how are you able to access the questions of the students? How are you able to access everyone? Okay. For hearing people, it's easier because the audio feed is much easier to access. But for them, it was much difficult. And also, if you have like interpreters using that platform, it couldn't be clearly read. So I think the best approach would be the blended learning for deaf students. So you have like half of the classes face-to-face and then half of the online. So that would be the best environment, but not entirely like 100% online. Just want to inform you based from my experience. So again, setting that aside, the Center for Education and Advocacy Development would like to thank you all for attending here. We'd like to get the call on our research associate, Ines Season, to